Continuing You Can Change the World, The Christopher Approach by James Keller, with Chapter 12, Letter Writing, A Service to Society. What is the common man thinking? The life history of democracy can be traced as an unceasing search for an answer to this vital question. Wonder what that question is. Public opinion can only be of service to democracy if it can be heard. The Pulse of Democracy by George Gallup and S.F. Ra is where that quote is from. Letter writing, intelligent letter writing with a constructive message, is a very important service in preserving the God-given liberties of our free society. The letter you write today may do much to preserve tomorrow your own home and the homes of families 1,000 miles away. Indeed, a letter is a form of life insurance for our nation. If you will think back some 3 years, you may recall the attempt that was made by certain subversive elements to ease J. Edgar Hoover out of his job as head of the FBI. These elements, made up of some 20 different committees of 3 or 4 persons each, were continually at work at dinners, receptions, in legislators' offices, at diplomatic functions, and on. The tactics they used were shrewd and quietly destructive. On one hand, they set in motion all sorts of rumors aimed at destroying the effectiveness of the FBI. On the other hand, they let it be known, purely in the public interest, of course, that Mr. Hoover deserved to be promoted to some higher spot in government service, thus paving the way for the elimination of a major obstacle in their plans to undermine America. What you may not know, however, is that the actions of one woman in Washington, who was aware of what was going on and did something about it, prevented such deplorable tactics from meeting with success. This woman wrote a Christopher friend in New York, outlining the situation in detail. A day or so later, she phoned this Christopher and told him, "Maybe you ought to try to do something from up there. Maybe you ought to try to do something from up there. Every bit will help. And Lord knows they deserve it." The letter's reaction was one of bewilderment at first. "If the FBI can't take care of itself," he asked, "what can a little fellow like me do about it?" After giving the matter some thought, however, he decided that he should at least make an effort. First, he contacted 10 close friends and suggested they write their congressman about what was happening. The shock he received when almost all of them told him they didn't know who their congressman was, spurred his determination instead of lessening it. Under his urging, the 10 friends promised to get the necessary information and follow through with letters to their national legislators. Next, this Christopher, learning that his promptings were having some effect, extended his letter writing suggestions to acquaintances all over the country. Soon letters began to pour into Washington from every part of the U.S. The result, Mr. Hoover's assistant stated that this barrage of letters nipped in the bud this particular attempt to sabotage the FBI. Had the woman in Washington never written that first letter, however, a whole chain of events leading to the protection of one of our most effective agencies for national security might never have been started on its way. Persons in positions of responsibility, legislators, newspaper and magazine writers, motion picture producers, and radio network directors are much more susceptible to public opinion than is generally realized. Nowadays, people look at the last president and say, "Oh, well, look at what he was trying to do." Well, he wasn't perfect either.